I've had a rather busy 12, 18 hours. I actually thought it was Wednesday. I was expecting to hear, "Hey, Camel, guess what day it is?" But it's Tuesday. Oh, my Lord. Well, first off, let me welcome you to the program, everybody. The Chris Salcedo Show, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. You know it's dangerous when you start missing days, and I'm going to be right up front and honest with you. I'm a little off my game today, and I don't mind telling you that because it was in service of a good cause. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I was just listening to one of the political ads here on KSEV, and it was Crenshaw's ad, who, by the way, is a fan of the show, who calls in quite often, running for post seat. Running for the seat that's currently occupied by Ted Poe. We got to make sure we get our terminology straight. At any rate, he ran a marathon or some sort of an endurance. I think it was a marathon. Ran a whole bunch of miles in district. I think it was part of his block walking effort to raise money for a charitable organization. I'm thinking to myself, man alive, I am in terrible shape. Just reading how many miles he did made me wince. The web address for the Chris Salcedo Show, if you want to get all things digital, go to ksevradio.com/Chris Salcedo. That's ksevradio.com/ChrisSalcedo. So I didn't want to tell you guys this ahead of time because I wanted the event to be about those who were gathered and not about the show coming in. But we were invited to speak at a Lincoln/Reagan/President's Day dinner for the Hilltop Lakes GOP, I think it's Leon County. And Hilltop was the location. And this, what I didn't realize, because I was, here's the whole backstory. Pastor Rafael Cruz, who was the father of Senator Ted Cruz, was slated to be the keynote speaker. And he came down with the flu. And as I told those gathered last night, I said, I wish him, all the best health and would never wish this flu on anybody. But I'm glad I had an opportunity to come here and speak to you because when he couldn't make it, the campaign called and asked us, and I was honored and floored. As a matter of fact, I got the call. Was it either Saturday or Sunday? And I'm driving to. It must have been Sunday, because I was driving to church with the family, and I was going, "Oh man, it was quite a drive." It is actually in Kevin Brady's congressional district. As a matter of fact, some of his representatives were there yesterday as well. And so I was like, wow, do I do this? And my wife says, how can you? And she, Mrs. Salcedo, not political at all, but she knew it was Ted Cruz's campaign that was asking. And she goes, are you really going to say no? And I said, well, that's a good point. So that was it. And honored beyond all belief that the campaign had asked me to do this. And it was a great visit. It was just first off, I'd never been to Hilltop, Texas. Russell, you ever been to Hilltop Lakes?
No, I have not.
Hilltop, it's beautiful out there. It's beautiful. And it's I'm not going to say remote. I'm just going to say it's in one of the on the fringes of the suburbs. Let's call it that. And just a very nice, tight-knit community and beautiful countryside all around. So it was a great experience. Talk to the folks probably a lot about what we're going to be talking about today, because I'm sad to say, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting words of folks who want to double down on stupid in Washington, D.C. One of them happens to be the president of the United States. Now, I understand the political calculation here. Nibble around the edges, be able to say you did something on gun control, but gun control isn't the answer. We have gun control now. Guess what? It's not working. Gun control is leading to our children being slaughtered in school. Gun-free zones, that's gun control, ladies and gentlemen. That's gun control. It's leading to our children being slaughtered. And I'll play the news story for you a little bit later on, but I'm going to ask you guys to comment on this. The conventional wisdom is now, well, we've got to do something. And that something has to be big government. And that something has to be big government taking away rights from the people. We have to do something. And it's completely moronic. Now, I am not opposed to background checks. I think we have them now. I am unaware, because I've been through them, that there are any loopholes necessarily in background checks, other than the fact that you have those who are in charge of doing them sometimes screwing up, like the FBI. Remember Dylan Roof? Should never have had his hand on a weapon. There is a law on the books that said that Dylan Roof should not have a weapon. He got one. It wasn't because there was no gun restriction. The gun restriction was there. It was law. But you had people inside of government who screwed up. So when government screws up, what is your recourse, or what are you going to be able to do? Now, the liberals, our Democrat friends, will say, well, when government screws up, your job is to sit down and be slaughtered, because the greater good is you not having a weapon. The greater good is you being slaughtered and your children being slaughtered, because we don't want you to be able to defend yourself. That's what they're saying. In effect, when government fails, what is your recourse? And we can go one of two ways. And I'm afraid the way the Trump administration and the way these weak-kneed congressional Republicans are going, we got to give them something. No, you don't. You've got to do the right thing. You've got to stop the slaughter of our children. That's what you have to do. And there is a way to do it. Fire back. Let the crazy people know that they will meet resistance. Harden the targets. Don't seek to make the entire United States a gun-free zone. Get rid of the gun-free zones we have, which are killing fields, which are killing zones. 98% of the mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. Why? Because the nuts know they can go there and be the only folks carrying a weapon. This isn't rocket science. It's not. And I'm not sure why the Trump administration, and I'm not sure why congressional Republicans are trying to make this so danged complicated. If your goal is to solve the issue, I don't know. If your goal is to placate the American left and win an election, then maybe this is the right course. If your goal is to get on your knees and kiss some left-wing progressive's rear end and kowtow them and shoot sunshine up their nose, oh yes, we're listening to you, and pat them on the head, then yeah, this is the right way. Of course, it's making us all less safe. It's a false sense of security, just like all of these other gun restrictions have been. Sure. But, you politicians are well versed in this, aren't you? Sacrificing American lives for your political fortunes, aren't you? And I don't know about y'all. I'm tired of it. I don't want my community sacrificed. I don't want my family, my children sacrificed, my life sacrificed on the altar of getting some politician elected. I don't. So I'll play the soundbite for you, and then you guys can decide for yourself. Meanwhile, the National Rifle Association is supposed to go up to Dallas. Did you guys hear about this? National Rifle Association has their annual convention booked in Dallas. And there's a guy up there. Russell, name for me a big time, other than Sylvester Turner, big time left-wing kook in the Houston area. Well, Sheila Jackson Lee, but she's not city government. She's federal. But just think of Sheila Jackson Lee, Sylvester Turner, and there's a guy up in Dallas called Dwayne Caraway. He's the Dallas mayor pro tem. And he's out there saying, NRA, we don't want them here. This guy doesn't want the National Rifle Association inside of Dallas, the number one leading gun rights and gun training organization in America, dedicated to firearm safety since its inception. Even, I got to find this. Hold on a second. This just popped into my head. You guys know who Richard Dreyfuss is, right? Richard Dreyfuss, the actor. And I think we played this when it first came down. Richard Dreyfuss was talking with Piers Morgan when he was at CNN. Richard Dreyfuss, a man of the left. But Richard Dreyfuss, not an idiot like Dwayne Caraway. Not an idiot like Sheila Jackson Lee. Listen to this.
The other issue, which is the power of the NRA over the gun debate and the apparent intransigence of Washington to do anything about that. What is the route through that?
Well, first of all, I don't think the NRA is a villain. And I don't think that the people against the NRA are villains. I believe that's a problem of the press, which started with an us-them problem. I do believe that the Second Amendment is ambiguously written, and we will never have an agreement on whether it's about gun ownership or a militia.
Well, actually, that's not true. 2008, the Supreme Court ruled we have an inherent right to bear arms. We have a constitutionally given right to bear arms. Actually, it's a natural right, the right of self-defense, and it's been codified in our founding document.
And at the same time, I believe that there is an inappropriate amount of gun violence, and I think we should turn this over to the people who are expert at this. And the original mandate of the NRA was to train responsible gun ownership, and the NRA should handle it.
Ta-da. Richard Dreyfuss, an actor, a man of the left who actually has education, who actually understands the genesis and the beginnings of the NRA, why it was founded, to preserve our Second Amendment rights, to make sure that those who have firearms handle them responsibly and properly, because that's the right thing to do. And if Dreyfuss can get it, you'd think that Donald Trump could get it. You'd think that the Republican Party can get it. But no, there seems to be, none of them are finding their way in front of the cameras. I'm not seeing. Who are we gonna rely on, folks? Mitch McConnell, right? Oh yeah, American second guy comes from Kentucky and is one of the weakest individuals. There's a picture out there of him holding up a shotgun. Yay. Yeah, go gun rights until you surrender them for politics' sake. The way you surrendered our fiscal health on that budget of yours. Mitch McConnell. All right, 281-558-5738. 281-558-KSEV. We get back. I'll let you guys hear that report from Fox News that, I'm sorry, I got to tell you, red alert. They're talking about gun control, something that's proven not to work, and nobody's having the conversation about what does work. What does work? We guard our children, we guard our government buildings, we guard our politicians, we guard our athletes, we guard our money with men and women with guns. Can we not do the same for our kids? A liberal will say, nope. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. Just read this headline out of CBS. It's easier to buy an assault weapon, which doesn't exist. There's no such thing as an assault weapon, but I know what they meant. It's easier to buy an assault weapon than it is to buy cold medicine in Florida. That's a blatant lie. Talk about fake news. That's a blatant lie. Anybody that has gone through the process of buying a firearm knows how much of a lie this is. This is the and this is coming from a news organization. I'll bet you they're going to find some sort of caveat, or they didn't specify in the headline that it's on the black market, that it's an illegal gun trade. Well, how does that stop when you pass a law, you idiots? I haven't even read the story yet. But even if they're saying it's the black market, it's a dishonest headline. If they're saying it's through legitimate means, it's crazy. And the only other thing I can think of that would justify that headline is that if it's a son buying a gun from his father. Those sales are not regulated. That's true. That is true. You can sell to your children your firearms without Uncle Sam getting involved. And the liberals say, "Oh, that's the cause of all this. That's really that's what's caused all these mass shootings." No. The recent ones, all government failures. See, they're pointing the finger because they don't want you to realize that government fails you. Put your trust in government. Put your trust in government. Put your trust in government. Well, wait a minute. Isn't government failing all over the place? Well, yes, but we just want the power. We don't care about it failing. What will happen the next time government fails? They're gonna pass some new regulation, right? Some new restriction on your liberties and your ability to defend your children in your community. When they do this, what is going to be their excuse the next time government fails? Let me give you an example. Remember when the EPA under President Obama turned that Colorado River orange with toxins? Remember that? With heavy metals and all kinds of toxins out there in Colorado. When that happened, the EPA said, "Oops, sorry. Our bad." Did anybody get fired? Nope. Did anybody get sued? Nope. Federal government. We're the federal government. We wanted to do good, but it's not our fault. However, when the private sector screws up, they are merciless, unforgiving. In my view, we ought to be as unforgiving to the federal government as the federal government is to the private sector. But we tune out. So you want to give over all of this power to the federal government, and when they screw up, "Oh, sorry, our bad, let's move on. Keep the paychecks coming. Keep the taxes coming. Matter of fact, we're going to need a 3% raise next year. Automatic. Don't even have to go to Congress and ask for it. It's all automatic because, the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., we need to get ours." This is what the unaccountable nature of our government has devolved into. And all well and good, but it's costing us our lives. It's costing us our children's lives. And for me, that's when I say enough. That's when I say, okay, done, sorry, over. I don't think, what was that movie? It was Tombstone. It was Tombstone. Kurt Russell was playing Wyatt Earp. Do you ever see that movie, Russell? It was, that's a
great movie.
It's one of the best of all time. Best Westerns of all time, not to mention best movies. There was a point where Sheriff Behan, who was played by a Weasley type looking actor and was a weasel of a character, decided he was going to arrest the Earps because they stood up for the rule of law, and Sheriff Behan was on the take to the Cowboys, which was organized crime. So Sheriff Behan, with his cane in his hand, says, "That's it. You're all under arrest." And Wyatt Earp walks up to him. You remember this scene? Wyatt Earp walks up to him, says, "I don't think I'm going to allow you to arrest us today, Behan." So look, this is, we are in control of our government, not the other way around. And we've got to get back into that mindset. This is what I was telling the folks in Hilltop, Texas last night. Stop thinking that, well, here comes Donald Trump. Here comes the Republican Party. They're going to cave to the Democrats. Oh, we must as well. What? No. No. We don't have to. Because it's costing our children's lives. I don't want to double down on stupid. Do you? Fox News Channel saying it seems what Donald Trump might be doing.
There are signs of movement tonight on gun control in the blistering reaction to last week's school shooting in Florida. President Trump is indicating he would be in favor of efforts to improve federal background checks for gun purchases.
What? Will that solve anything? Will it solve anything? Will it stop the killing of our kids? No. Would it have stopped what happened in Florida? No. The kid had no criminal record. There was no constitutional reason not to give him a firearm. Other than the fact that there were tons of tips. They could have found some reason with, 39 phone calls to the local sheriffs and the FBI that had text messages from this kid saying he wanted to be the next mass shooter. Hint and a half. But again, was that a failure of us, or was that a failure of government? A failure of government.
This comes as some of the survivors are making plans to go to the state capitol this week and march on Washington next month as they demand change.
Okay. We demand change. We want the shooting to stop. Well, what are you prepared to do about it? Take away everybody's guns. Let me get this straight. You think it's easier to take everybody's guns away as opposed to putting trained specialists inside of every school in America? You think it's going to be easy in the U.S. alone to get rid of 3.5 million guns? 3.5 million than it is to put somebody qualified to defend your kids in every school in America.
You know, the first thing those kids should be doing is looking at their own school and doing something to help secure that school a bit more than what it was.
Well, that's a given.
I mean, obviously the kid was able to just walk right on in.
I know that.
You can't walk right in. There's not too many schools that I know of here in the city of Houston that you can just walk right into.
Not these days. Not these days. But you know what? What I was struck by all of this is when I watched those kids roll out their announcement on Fox News with Chris Wallace. They read their left-wing talking point script very well. They were very articulate, but they were given those words to say. They were, and it's right out of the leftist playbook. Disarm, disarm, disarm. That's going to solve anything. No, it won't solve a thing. All you're going to do is make sure that the criminal element are the only ones with the guns, because the young man is never asked a legitimate question by those in our press. You know, I've thought about reaching out to these kids to get them onto the show, but they've probably been warned, don't go on conservative talk radio. They'll ask you a tough question. But I'd ask this young man, and maybe I'll ask some of you kids in the cars who maybe have friends like this, what makes you think that your federal government will be able to stop illegal guns from coming into this country when they can't stop illegal drugs and they can't stop illegal aliens? What makes you think, are you willing to bet your life on the competency of the federal government? I'm not. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. All right, welcome everybody to the Chris Salcedo Show. And we've kind of done this show already as far as what your views were on solving the gun issue. You guys had tons of great ideas. But, you know, this is getting so old. Oh, let's double down on stupid because that's what's politically expedient, and that's what the president is doing. And that's what congressional Republicans are doing, because they don't believe they can stand up to this fabricated torrent of the American left who are only using this issue to advance their politics, the way they do with every issue. Nobody ever asks, wait a minute, how is tinkering around the edges here with increased background checks? And I have no problem with Florida doing what Florida's doing. Look, if the state wants to put restrictions on guns, that's fine. Those who want to possess firearms can come to Texas. And when Florida starts to see increased violence from the criminal aliens and from the criminals inside of their borders because their people can't defend themselves and the crime stats go up, because whenever you have more law-abiding citizens with weapons, crime plummets. Did you guys know that gun ownership has skyrocketed here in the United States over the past few decades? And as it has done so, crime has dropped precipitously. So there is no correlation between more guns and more crime. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. More armed citizens, more armed, law-abiding citizens makes for safer communities. But it's Florida's decision to make. Go ahead and make the decision. But when I hear Donald Trump and weak-kneed Republicans, we've got to do some gun control, because that's worked so well so far. You guys know what I favor. We need to protect our kids. You know, I was telling the folks in Hilltop Lakes last night that wouldn't it be great for our teachers to have more to put between a crazed gunman and their kids than just their body? That coach that died, wouldn't it have been great if he had a gun to save his kids rather than have to forfeit his own life? And then we're not even having that discussion. Donald Trump, he has a lot of smart people around him. Donald Trump must have gotten the word, hey, here's what Israel does, and they don't have mass shootings. Donald Trump could say, well, let's do that. That's going to save lives. And then have the debate with the leftists. Have the debate with the Chuck Toomers who only want the issue. Have the debate with the Nancy Pelosi's who only want the issue, who are perfectly fine with more kids dying so long as they can advance liberalism, which is going for your guns. I'm sick and tired of this. Oh no, we must have nonsensical and idiotic conversations because the left wing needs a political victory. Yes, we must talk on their terms. We must talk about gun control because the leftists need a political victory. Shut up. No, we need to save kids' lives, period. End of sentence. And look, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you guys think that this is somewhere out of bounds, but I think we ought to go with what is proven to work. Just me, maybe. Well, I know as far as the progressives are concerned, they don't want to go with what works. They want to go with what works for them politically. Whether it saves lives or not is immaterial. And I can guarantee you their approach will not save lives. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Back to Fox News Channel.
There are signs of movement tonight on gun control in the blistering reaction to last week's school shooting in Florida. President Trump is indicating he would be in favor of efforts to improve federal background checks for gun purchases.
Okay, to what end? Improve them how? What does that mean?
This comes as some of the survivors are making plans to go to the state capitol this week and march on Washington next month as they demand change. Correspondent Steve Harrigan starts us off tonight from Parkland, Florida. Good evening, Steve.
John, good evening. We got our first look at the accused shooter in court today. The 130-pounder was in a red jumpsuit, reserved for the most violent offenders.
Shame on you!
More anti-gun rallies were held at major cities across the country.
Anti-gun rallies. Yeah, because it was the gun's fault. Why don't these nutballs protest crazed people that go in and shoot them? Why don't you protest that? It's not the gun's fault. When the radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorist mowed down those people in New York City, did you see these left-wing kooks? No more cars, no more truck rentals, no more. No, of course you didn't. Because that's not politically advantageous for them. You know that more people are killed by knife attacks in the United States than AR-15s? Did you know that? Every year? No more knives! No more knives! Give me a break. I'm so sick of these insipid, vacuous arguments that doesn't make our kids any more safe. And all you libs and you progressives out there, why don't you come to the table with something different? And you know what? These mental midgets, Donald Trump, you ought not be surrendering to them. And I don't, just because somebody's been through a tragedy doesn't make them right. And that's, well, the children have been through a tragedy, and so we can't say anything. You can't? What if tomorrow, as I think I brought this up yesterday, what if tomorrow one of those kids that had been through hell at that high school came out and said, you know what, man-made global warming is a hoax? Climate change is a hoax? Could we not dispute what they were saying, you left-wingers? Would you all just say, well, they must be right because they've been through a tragedy? This is stupid. This is non-thinking. And I'm not inclined to accommodate this anymore. And I think it's a mistake for the White House to do so.
Young people in Washington laid in front of the White House, demanding lawmakers intervene to stop gun violence. And students from Stoneman Douglas High School, where their fellow classmates lost their lives, have announced plans for a national gun control march in Washington, set for March 24th. President Trump has scheduled a listening session to meet with students on Wednesday.
I'm sure that's going to be riveting. Sad, yes. And I don't berate the president for listening to people in their grief. But what these kids will have is studied talking points from their left-wing handlers. We need the federal government to start confiscating guns, they will demand. We need to start working on that Second Amendment, the repeal of the Second Amendment. They will, because these kids haven't been alive for 2 decades. They have no idea the ramifications to this society when you start removing the right of the people to defend themselves. They have no idea the consequences. How could they know? They should be concentrating on who to take to prom, not trying to rob their fellow citizens of their God-given rights. And also, to be honest, they should also not have to worry about dodging bullets in their school. And you know the quickest way to do that? You put armed men in those schools, and then you advertise it. You advertise like they do in Argyle. This school's teachers has firearms, and we will defend our students. No mass shootings. I wonder why. My favorite yard sign that I have ever seen, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I told this to the folks at Hilltop yesterday, this house protected by Smith & Wesson 3 days of the week. You decide which 3.
This as the White House signals Trump would back congressional efforts to strengthen federal background checks for gun purchases. And Florida Senator Marco Rubio urged state legislators to consider so-called red flag laws that enable family members or law enforcement to have guns taken away from someone deemed to be a threat.
I'm sure that's going to make no difference whatsoever. It'll make no difference whatsoever. It's a false sense of security. It's going to give our elected leaders, just like on the DACA debate, folks. Oh, we did something. Because all they're doing is debating on the DACA debate. Just a dog and pony show there. But, we did something. Yes, but what you did was ineffective and didn't save any lives. So why bother? Why don't you guys do something that will actually work? I'm not interested in making people feel better. I'm interested in saving our kids' lives. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. We've got a full board. Folks, your calls and what you guys just heard. I mean, look, you guys know I'll support the president whenever his populism meets my conservatism. But there is no way I'm going to sign on to this as some sort of viable solution. Gun control. Yes, because it's worked out so well so far. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. All right, I've got to address it. Folks, I will get to your calls here in about 60 seconds. I've got to address this because I keep on getting emails from y'all. We've just finalized this deal. We are partnering up with Empower Texans. Those of you who need to find the fake the fake Republicans, those who, like, for example, Sarah Davis. Sarah Davis, all you need to know is a vote for Sarah Davis is a vote for Wendy Davis. They're the same people, almost right down the list. Okay? So you need to know that Susanna Dockupil is going to be your choice in that race. The Empower Texans has a comprehensive list. Empower Texans, look for their website and then go to their voter guide. It is probably one of the more comprehensive lists, and it goes into judges and everything else. From my understanding, I think this went live a week ago. I'm not certain on that, but anyway, when all of you guys are asking to go over in particular races, Paul Betancourt, State Senator Paul Betancourt, is saying, call up and we'll discuss each race. What I'm recommending everybody do in the Salcedo Show audience is go to Empower Texans. And if you don't find your race there, then contact me. And then I will make a special inquiry on your behalf so that the fine researchers over at Empower Texans can find out who is battling it out in the primaries. Of course, early voting has already started, ladies and gentlemen. So bear that in mind. And it is very important that we expunge every Strauss-type Republican, which is basically a progressive liberal, out of the Texas State House. They are the biggest impediment to progress. They are allied with the Democrat Party here in the state of Texas, and it can no longer be. I told the folks at Hilltop Lakes last night, do you know who the number 1 and number 2 vote legislation authors were in the last legislative session? They were Democrats. And who did that? Joe Strauss. Joe Strauss made the Democrat agenda the priority in the Texas House. We've got to stop electing these people. And so, you know what? And I love the way we do things here in Texas. I love the way we do things here in Texas. Meeting every other year, and we pay our leaders for 3 months of service. But you know what? After this session, I think the Texas House should give Texans a refund because they didn't earn their money, even the paltry sum they're given. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Ronnie, I appreciate your patience. Welcome to the Salcedo Show.
Thanks, Chris. How you doing today?
Doing well, sir. Thank you.
Hey, love the show. Wanted to talk about the gun control.
Yeah.
I'm a Marine Corps veteran and a small business owner, and wanted to, everybody's talking about taking the guns from the good people and stuff, but nobody's talking about making the crimes more strict, more time in prison and stuff like that. I mean, I think if you have a gun crime, you should be in prison for a long time and really go hard on these people that just don't understand guns and don't understand the kind of damage they're bringing to America.
No, you know what? I understand that as part of disincentivizing those who would use guns in that manner, that does require a modicum of sanity on the part of an individual who is undertaking shooting somebody illegally. With the cat in Parkland, Florida, the guy's a full-on nutcase. And so was Dylan Roof, and so was the Sutherland Springs shooter, full-on nuts. So the only deterrence that they would recognize is because what do they want to do? I mean, you're a military guy. When you do a mass shooting in a church or when you do a mass shooting at a school, what are you trying to do?
Trying to make chaos.
You're trying to make chaos, and you're trying to make the biggest. You're getting your 15 minutes, right, of fame, and you're trying to drive the body count as high as you can, right?
Correct.
That's the reason why. Now ask why these guys don't go attack a military base or a police station or a bank, because they know there are people there with guns who will fire back, and that body count won't be anywhere near as high as they want it to be. They attack gun-free zones because they know they'll be the only ones armed. They're smart enough to know that.
Yes, and I agree. And one of my things is like, when these mass shootings happen, everybody's grieving. America's grieving. And the politicians are reaping on this. I just recently had a death in the family, and I'm telling my sister-in-law, do not make any financial decisions for at least a year. Grieve. feel the pain and then make these decisions, because you're going to make wrong decisions, and that's what's happening. They're milking this to make us make wrong decisions on what's going on in America.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, the left wing is trying to crank up the heat on these politicians, and they ought to have the wherewithal to push back. And it seems we in conservative talk radio are the only ones who are doing it. Hey, thank you, Ronnie, for the service to the country, man. I appreciate it, and the call this morning. Hey, Alan, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. I'm glad you tuned in.
What's up? Back to the person that just called. He's in the military. What are we going to do? Florida's trying to change their gun law, or you cannot purchase a weapon until you are at least 21 years old.
Right. And again, I don't agree with the policy, but I believe it's Florida's right to do that. And I think that those who oppose that, because it's states' rights, man. If they want to be stupid about it and put a rule in place that won't stop the mass killings. Because does anybody think that this 19-year-old kid would have stopped when, I can't buy a firearm legally? that would have stopped him? No.
Well, that, and you have a person that has served 3 years in the military, 2 years possibly overseas in Afghanistan, Iraq, you name the country, and then he comes back to the United States and can't even purchase a gun in his own state.
Well, we already have a conflict right now that it's perfectly legal for these kids, these 18-year-olds, to go over and die for their country, but they can't come home and have a legal drink.
Right.
Until they're 21. Right. So we'll just be setting up another one of those stupid, idiotic contradictions in American law. And you're going to look at that and go, that makes absolutely no sense. And you're right. It makes absolutely no sense because it's not going to save anybody's life.
That, and you're forcing law-abiding citizens to break the law.
Then there's that. So let me get this straight. When you're 18 years old, you don't have the right of even though you're a legal adult in America, you don't have the right of self-defense?
Right. I was married at 19. I had my first kid when we were 29 years old.
Wow.
At 19, I was not able to have a gun in Florida. And you're married and you have the responsibility of working, having a place to live and everything, and you can't own a weapon. It makes no sense.
Nobody's making any sense, and that's what it ticks me off, Alan. Thanks for that. Well, you're making sense, and I'm making sense, but nobody that's driving policy, in particular the White House. Mr. NRA pro-gun Donald Trump is considering this, and it's like, man, I understand the politics of it, but man alive, can you also say, here's also what I want to do that's actually, Donald Trump can pull this off. The gun restrictions won't do anything to save lives, but I'll go with that so that the left wing feels better, but I'm going to actually do something that will save lives. And
not only that, let me give you a little deal here. I don't know if you've read about the Russian bouts that are out there. They've already jumped on this, and they are putting fake stuff on Twitter and everything like that. They are trying to enrage these kids with all these demonstrations and everything. It's already been proven, look it up, that the Russians are already putting all these fake things out there, trying to start demonstrations and stuff like that to disenfranchise everybody in this country.
Well, the libs love them Russians. They have a long history of working with the Russians to undermine America, so why should today be any different? Hey, buddy, thank you very much for the call.
Bud.
I appreciate it. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV, a female's perspective. Tina, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. What say you? Tina, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, Tina.
Hey, I'm against. I'm a conservative, but I'm against assault rifles.
What is an assault rifle? I have no idea what that is.
Any kind of army, the things that you don't need those, the ARs or anything in society.
Well, wait a minute, hold on. There is no such thing as an assault rifle. Number one, it's a made up term that the left wing uses to scare you. Now, the AR-15 is not a military-style rifle. It is a single-pull rifle, one pull of the trigger with one bullet. The military has automatic weapons. When you pull the trigger, it has several rounds that fire out. So that's a different type of weapon.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that you should probably have the guns to protect yourself, and I don't think you'd need those other guns. And also, what about banning violent movies and violent videos and those horrible violent TV shows? I mean, I grew up. I'm not from this country, but I grew up here in the '80s, and I remember myself when I was at U of H. I went to this is the first time I ever heard about experienced violent videos.
Right.
You go into those arcades. Remember where you used to do the arcade games?
Oh yeah, I used to blow my weekly allowance in 2 hours. I'd get $5 a week for doing my chores, and I would blow it in 2 hours in those arcades.
Right, but as a 20-year-old at U of H, I remember going down there, and I didn't know the new violent games were out at that time, and I started playing this game. It visually looked good, but I came from a generation that was not desensitized to violence because of that horrible violence and chewing up people and killing people for entertainment was not in style.
Well, let's. No, I get what you're saying.
When I started playing that game, my heart, I could not stand it. I could not believe people were selling this to people. I walked away from that game because it did not feel right playing for entertainment, chopping somebody's head off.
Well, Tina, first off, I mean, you brought up several things I want to discuss. If you can hang on, I want to bring you back on the other side of the break because you brought up some points, and I want to discuss this in lieu of the Constitution and in lieu of your rights and the rights of your fellow citizens. So, and the reason why I believe this discussion is important. Now, you and I, if you can hang around, you and I are going to have a discussion that these kids should be getting from so-called adults in Florida, but are not getting. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on the Voice of Texas.
KSEV 700 AM.
Appreciate it. Welcome back, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show. And 281-558-5738. 281-558-KSEV is the phone number. I want to continue my conversation with Tina. Tina, you bring up a lot of good points. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. The reason I was so fascinated in keeping your call is that this conversation I had with my mother-in-law probably about 3 days ago. And it was because she and I spoke and we talked about it. And I wanted to maybe offer you some alternative points of view and just let you noodle on it. I'm not trying to convert you or change your mind necessarily, but just get you to think about it. Now, when you started, you said that you didn't believe that the AR-15, you didn't believe anybody needs an AR-15, right? And you're not the only one. You're not the only one who says this. And as a matter of fact, my mother-in-law said, you know what? I don't see why anybody needs an AR-15.
Talk to psychotropic drugs.
What was that again?
The psychological psychotropic drugs that change these brain, it's those antidepressants.
Well, that aside, I mean, psychotropic drugs are involved, and a handgun becomes just as dangerous. But I want to focus on, because I hear this argument a lot from folks who say, "Well, you don't need that. You don't need an AR-15." Look. Let me just offer this to you to get you to think about it. When the government starts taking out weapons from your hands, because you're a law-abiding lady, I'm a law-abiding Latino. There are law-abiding Americans within the sound of our voice. If the government said tomorrow AR-15s are illegal because they've done it before, then the law-abiding like you and me, we will comply, correct? Because we obey the law. Now, this government, Tina, lets illegal aliens come across that border, streams across that border. They can't stop them. This government cannot stop illicit drugs from flowing over that border, right? Can't stop them. Let me ask you, what makes you think that they would be able to stop illegal AR-15s from coming over that border?
Yeah, well, like my husband said, my husband's like you. He's more of the person that said, yeah, you can ban the stuff, but I said, I guarantee you none of this will change anything. But I will tell you.
But no, but hold on. I understand what you're saying about all that, but you're going to help me prove a point. So just stick with me, and we'll go through this step by step. So what's going to happen if the government bans AR-15s and they can't stop anything from coming across that border because our government isn't serious about securing our nation? What is the net effect? What will they be able to stop illegal AR-15s from coming across that southern border?
Yeah, but you're right. You're not going to. But at
right.
least,
So what will happen after that?
Illegal.
Yes. So criminals will be able to bust into your house, and they will have purchased illegally an AR-15, and they will have the AR-15 aimed at you, and you will not be able to meet force with force. You will be severely outgunned. So what your government in effect is doing is disarming you. Okay, one more, and leaving you susceptible to the criminal element that because they're criminals, they don't obey the law. That's number one. Number two, the right of self-defense is in our Second Amendment to the Constitution. What if somebody said tomorrow, you know what, Tina, I don't think you need to get on Chris Salcedo's show and have your opinion said. But you don't need to do that. You don't need your entire First Amendment right. Why is it acceptable to curtail our right of self-defense, but when you start talking about curtailing the other amendments of the Bill of Rights, then everybody goes, wait a minute, that's insane. You can't stifle somebody's free speech. Of course you can't. Because
I'm not going to leave the Republican Party because of that. This stuff, I will never leave the Republican Party because they're America haters. But I will tell you, all of these talk show hosts, which are mostly men, y'all need to get on the bandwagon about banning violent, horrible things that are hurting your families from Hollywood.
Well, you know what? I think that we should empower parents to make those decisions. And you know what? The wonderful thing we've discovered in the Chris Salcedo show, we don't let our kids have computers in their room. We don't allow our kids to.
Most parents don't understand the long-term consequences of violent stuff that your children watch when you're very young.
Well, lady, I appreciate you waiting through two breaks. And like I said, you and I had a pretty fruitful discussion. I think folks know where we're trying to go with that. Appreciate the call. James, thank you for waiting. Glad you made it.
Hey, do me a favor. Carry me over maybe if you're going to break. Listen, Chris, for one, you're my loving Latino.
Thank you.
And I want to meet you. You need to have like a meet and greet. You live in the Houston area?
Well, when was the last time we had I think we went out to Kalachi's, right? Russell?
Factory. It's been a while since we've been out and done a remote.
You know, we're gonna have to do that. James, right? You know what? We're gonna have to put something together. Maybe in the summertime.
Hey, that would be great because I will take off. If it's on a Monday, it'd be better. I don't know what's wrong with the phone. I'm hearing some bad feedback.
Oh, you're hearing some bad feedback from the phone?
Yeah. I'm on my phone. It's like that, and I heard it when she was talking. Listen, Chris. There's somebody that has set this whole situation up with all these kids. Like I've been seeing on Facebook, they're laughing and smiling. And about 3 days after the shooting, they're going to protest and do all this. It's too organized. Okay, this is organized. And also, this is no conspiracy. I'm tired of hearing this. There was a training going on right then for a shooting, and this happened. And also, many students are saying there was two shooters, not one. You will not hear that on the darn news, but I have seen video of it.
Well,
shooters,
I gotta be honest, man. You know, that all the conspiracy theories aside, the fact that our elected leaders are once again setting us on a course of gun control, which is a proven failure. I'm tired of doubling down on failure because liberal progressives are butthurt.
Honestly, yes.
I'm tired of that.
Correct.
I'm tired of that.
Look, if Trump does this, he's lost me because of what he is now doing, saying, really burns my, you know what.
He better be
Because
careful.
He better not do this.
He had better be
I have been
careful.
a Trump supporter 100%.
Yep.
And I want you to know he needs to go tweet. I like him tweeting. It's the only way he could get the word out because the news medias are against him. I'm for him tweeting. But I really wish he would spend a little bit of money and go on TV nationwide and say, here is gun control. Look at Chicago. How has it worked? We really, like we had, you and I did the conversation the other day, we need to have teachers armed and not against their will, like you said, and I agreed. Well, my point is he needs to prove that everywhere where there's gun control, how is it working? Look at all the colleges before Texas passed it, allowed concealed carry. Look at how many shootings was at colleges that had concealed carry.
Yeah, you know what? I think we brought up, I think it was Rice University, who they were private, so they banned concealed carry on their campus. And I said, Rice University just hung out the placard saying, we're a gun-free zone, come shoot us up. They basically advertised that they were vulnerable. I thought it was kind of stupid, but that's just me. James, hey, I got to scoot to break, man. I thank you very much. And you know what? You've inspired. I can already see the gears turning in Russell's head about getting the Salcedo show out there on a remote broadcast. You know what? We are still in search of an official breakfast sponsor for the Chris Salcedo show. Do you know that? We are still searching for an official breakfast restaurant. You know what? If you guys have a favorite, why don't you walk in and say, you know what? Chris Salcedo would love to have you guys come on and be an official breakfast sponsor for the Chris Salcedo show. Maybe we can go there. You guys do some footwork on our behalf. Back in a minute. Chris Salcedo show here on the Voice of Texas. And that's going to do it here for the Chris Salcedo show worldwide on the Vida television network. I want to remind everyone that I think I'm one of the few individuals on television who actually allows you to directly interact with me unfiltered live. All you got to do is call AM 700 KSEV 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV from the hours of 7:30 a.m. Eastern until 10 o'clock Eastern, and let your voice be heard. Maybe you don't think we covered something fairly, or maybe you don't think we've covered something enough. It's your chance to weigh in. You can also do so via social media. Go to chrissalcedo.com. All of our contact information is there, or you can do it live in real time during those same hours at Chris Salcedo TX. Even off hours, we respond to Twitter, and it's a good chance, if you make a compelling argument, it'll be featured on the show, if I'm not on the air at the time, the following day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chris Salcedo show worldwide here on the Vida television network. We'll see you next time.